Well, to discuss the interest rate cut by the Reserve Bank further of 100 basis points, I'm joined on Skype by Dr. Iraj Abedian. He's the founder and chief executive at Pan-African Research. Thanks very much, sir, for joining us. So the Reserve Bank had its first emergency meeting during the COVID-19 crisis, and it's cut interest rates by a further 100 basis points. This is over and above the cut in March, that is 100 basis points in March. Were you surprised by the move, and is the quantum sensible, given that South Africa is about to head into very deep economic crisis?
Not surprised at all. It's a timely act. I would argue a little bit too little, too late. They should have done this in the last MPC meeting. Nonetheless, the more relief the Reserve Bank offers the business sector, especially small and medium businesses, the better. Interest rate immediately impacts their debt service charges. Is it enough? No, I believe there is still room. Remember, the global interest rates is zero or near zero. So we need to put it in the context, and hopefully the Reserve Bank again will cut the rates in order to provide relief.
What about the issue that has constantly been raised, that there needs to be that differential between interest rate differential between us and other economies, because we rely on incoming funds to be able to deal with our current account deficit? What about that argument, and to what extent can we cut without threatening that?
I think we need to be mindful of that. It's an important factor to bear in mind. But remember, where the capital is coming from, Europe, North America, Southeast Asia, the interest rates are zero and or in effect negative. So we need to look at the differential, and therefore 4%, 3% is the necessary conditions. But at the same time, we need to focus our attention on rebuilding the economy, which means generating returns on the actual investment in the economy. And that is where the real medium to long-term interest rate or return on capital differential will attract capital to South Africa.
Yeah, well, you bring me nicely to my next question. Of course, National Treasury has been rather quiet on this particular matter. We did hear about, some tax relief here and there. They are supposed to be giving a briefing, a telephonic one, which the nation obviously can't hear right now, between 12 and 2. We know that they don't have any bazookas in the box because the fiscus is under a lot of pressure. But what do they need to be communicating with us right now?
I think there are two centers of government at the moment that they should be continuously in communication with the nation. One is the Department of Health. They call it the Health and Welfare Cluster. The other one is Finance and Economic Cluster. We have had over the past while health rising to the challenge, but finance and economic cluster have been very, very silent and not interacting, communicating, as well as providing directions, because there are two challenges interrelated: keeping the health of the nation, which means lockdown, keeping the economy going as much as we can, which means the opposite of lockdown, but subject to some terms. So we need to have a lot more information coming from that cluster of the cabinet.
Yeah, of course, just speaking to what you're saying, the debate rages on. And of course, it's not just a debate in South Africa, it's a global one. What process do you think needs to happen to open up economies from lockdown in order to ensure that when we do go back to normal, so to speak, without defeating the whole exercise of the lockdowns in the first place?
I think there are as far as I understand, two parallel processes that we need to engage in. One is Department of Health, or the health cluster as I call them. They need to make sure absolutely that they have all the basics support that they require during the lockdown, ramping up emergency services, bed services, ventilators, masks, everything that the nation needs. At the same time, coordinate with the economic and finance cluster that if we're doing an ordinary closure to lockdown in an orderly way, what are the terms and conditions? Which businesses will be in phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, in order to strike a balance between health of the nation or containment of contamination rate, as well as ramping the economy back to as much as we can in as short a period as time.
Yeah.
These two need to be synchronized.
Iraj, so we're getting the IMF's World Outlook report today, and they're already on record as saying that the global downturn will be as bad as that of the Great Depression in the 20th century. What sort of global impacts are you expecting, and what's your view on whether, on what the possible recovery will be? People are talking about a V-shape, which suggests, a bit of a downturn, and then we move up quickly, a U-shaped recovery, and then there's the L-shaped, which is more negative. Where do you stand?
I do not believe we'll have a V. Definitely not. This damage to the structure of the economy on the production, on the supply side has been too severe. It will be a U. The bottom of the U, the length of it will depend on how much we coordinate across the globe. Unfortunately, at the moment, we do not have major countries in the mood or in the ideology of global coordination. That will elongate the bottom of the U. And therefore, it is not good news to the extent that hopefully sense will prevail, and from the emerging market economies, especially from the like of President Ramaphosa, there should be and hopefully will be a massive pushback against this lack of global coordination in order to shorten the bottom of the U. And then the other side of the U, the pickup is going to be a long, hard struggle going back. We are not going to go back to the so-called normal. We will get used to a new normal, in the language of economics, a new equilibrium, much lower than before, with very, very different economic structures globally.
Of course, there's much contestation about whether or not South Africa should tap onto the IMF support, but surely it wouldn't harm for us to tap on the IMF corona-specific support that's being made available. But we know that there's a massive issue going on between alliance partners.
I think the alliance partners, the rest of us, all of us, we need to rethink. We need to check reality around us. These sensational ideological baggages of the past are just simply a drag on doing the right thing. If the IMF or any other international organization has provided resources at reasonable rate, we need to access as much of it as we can, but at the same time make sure that whatever we access reaches the target communities. It is not just about money, it's about how the money is used within our national boundaries in order to minimize damage or hurt to the vulnerable communities.
Thank you very much, Dr. Iraj Abedian, for your time. He's the founder and chief executive at Pan African Research.